This is the Well Within podcast for women who are tired of managing, striving and second-guessing and are ready to reclaim their power. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Ellie. We're a mother-daughter helping women reconnect to their innate power, even when life is chaotic, challenging and uncertain.
This isn't another self-improvement podcast. It requires readiness and willingness to go to the edge of something different and new, and to notice what's hiding in plain sight.
This space invites you to return to who you were before the world taught you who to be.
And reconnect to your well within.
Because when women reclaim their power, anything becomes possible.
Hello and welcome to this week's Well Within podcast, where we are discussing and reflecting on the lovely conversation we had with Maria last week. Yes, it was a beautiful conversation. I was grateful to meet her. And yeah, she was so sharing and so vulnerable in what she was talking about, her experience she has had with body image and eating. And yeah, what an amazing journey and realization that, you know, she took us through, and it was so beautiful to kind of witness the before and after, the comparison in that conversation, and just the impact that what she shares and what we're sharing has when we kind of really start to see what is really going on beneath the surface of the beliefs, this narrative, this story which we've seem to have been carrying and feel so rock solid for our entire life that infiltrates. It has an impact in everything we do. So yeah, what a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just thinking about the influences element in what she shared around inherited conditioning, and talking about when mums are referencing their own body or putting their own body down, or like she shared in this example in the conversation around if maybe your mum's spending ages to get ready before she goes out to be able to look presentable or look okay. I think there's just, and how subtle those little elements and things can be, and how she also shared the example of people saying to her that when she has makeup on versus when she hasn't, like she doesn't wear makeup very often, but when she did have it on, people would say, oh, you look really well. And those tiny little things that they're obviously in and of themselves don't really mean very much, but I guess as all of these sort of things you start to pick up along the way, and then you start to build this belief or narrative in your own mind that actually this is what is good, this isn't what isn't good, and etc. And it's just so interesting how even those subtle things can have such a lasting impact on the way we view ourselves and the way we believe this body to be.
Yeah, the way it is kind of meant to look in this society, because it's so validated everywhere, isn't it? It's like everything out there is telling women, because we're talking about women, that we need to look a certain way to be okay. We have to have a certain shape, a certain look, and if we don't, then well, yeah, we're not good enough. And to a fragile sense of self that is jangling and that feels completely wrong or out of place or not fitting in, gosh, it's so heavy. And those that, like you talked about, those subtle, sort of things that we've kind of looking back in our mothers, sort of, they're just little things that at the time probably were so innocent, just the way it was. But as that sense of self, that sense of who I am, it begins to evolve. Yeah, it's amazing what kind of impacts the system, that it has to be a certain way and then I'll be okay, which is carried on and fuel added to it, that narrative. But what we're kind of pointing to here is, if the belief system, the underlying system isn't understood for what it is, and then it just continues, it just perpetuates, it continues looking for that validation, and it's exhausting on
Yeah.
the vehicle, the body, that it has to keep keep moving with us. That mind that tells it, that sort of informs it that it needs to be a certain way, is exhausting.
Yeah. And obviously, I shared my experience, and I wouldn't say, I mean, it definitely was disordered eating and definitely over exercising. And there was a point when I was so, so tiny. But I think at that point, I couldn't see it for myself. Yeah, it just became, obviously, every day when you look in the mirror, that's then your reference point. So I guess you kind of don't see it. Whereas people maybe that hadn't seen you for a while or whatever would kind of make comments, but they sort of just go over your head and you think that, I don't know, I feel like I saw myself in a different way maybe to what people saw. But I do remember at the time the impacts of social media. I remember I had a Pinterest board literally of just really athletic, skinny girls that I would obsessively pin pictures of these girls wanting to look that certain way. And obviously, like I said on the episode with Maria, I think for me it was a period of time when I felt out of control in certain areas, that this felt like something, right, I can really control this. I can focus on this. I can really have this rigid exercise regime. And it was very much just cardio, 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 not eating very much. Yeah. And it just became obsessive, really. And I really think I just got caught up in the loop of it. And I think it was that way really for a while. And even when I was at university, I think it was still very much going to the gym to run on a treadmill rather than going to the gym to feel strong or strength train or anything like that. It was like the body needed to look this certain size, because otherwise then surely no one will want to be with me or whatever. That's sort of the messaging that I had at that time. But no, I think we've spoken about this a lot together, but it'd be good just to share your experiences of what you were thinking during that time when, yeah, my eating and exercise was super controlled.
Yeah, and I think just listening to you, and when you kind of you're referring back to what Maria was talking about, sort of seeing in her mom those subtle signals, those subtle, signals that set up the and kind of make that belief system more robust and rigorous, and to keep going. And we talk about the mission of that belief system was to just to be accepted, to be loved, to be
Enough, really.
worship
Yeah.
worshipped, this body, be- because it's something that is solid, this solid body, this entity. When you look in a mirror, you can see the changes quite dramatically or quickly, but it will never ever ever look what you want, because the goalposts continuously are moving.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like holding sand in your hands. It's just continuously trickling through. We're trying to just catch it constantly. And yeah, sort of go back. So you can see the setup of that system, that young system, that, as parents, and I think, yeah, as mothers, that, because obviously I am a mother. We're women. We're automatically, into that sort of setup system of, of needing to look a certain way. And I think I can resonate because I used to do a lot of running. I remember a time when there was nothing on it when when I would, I started running for at quite a young age when I lived in Cumbria, and I used to do a lot of fell running. And oh, it was a joy. It was so joyful. I just loved running. I don't know, it was just this body, the whole, without any thinking or any attachment to it. It just loved running. And then suddenly, obviously, I grew into my adolescence. I kind of saw this body. There was an attention that from sort of boys, or it seemed to be that, oh, this had to be a certain way. But also, because obviously, I've talked about before, I moved schools so often, and I used to get bullied by girls who, I was always the new girl. So then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I want to hide. There was like a double kind of thing going on for me. It was like, this body has to be a certain way to look, to attract love, attention. But I don't want it. I don't want that attention either, because it gets you into trouble. It's sort of almost, I kind of figured that out in the mind quite quickly. And so I think running for me then kind of carried on as just something that it needed to do to look, to keep this physical body in a certain way. And the actual love of running, just the joy of it completely disappeared. It was attached to something that I needed to be okay. And obviously the subtle signals and the subtle languaging and the subtle that you obviously as children pick up on, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's almost like we're just oblivious to what we're kind of passing on, because why would we know any, because why would we know any different? Does that make sense? So maybe there was something in that sort of was the thread that sort of informed your system. Well, in a different, from a different kind of flavor of more controlling, that this body has to be a certain way. Because now look at the body now. I mean, it's a completely, we've got a different look from when you were sort of at that time when you were talking about that sort of very small, and now it's a very muscular. There's a new kind of this more sort of muscular, defined, and that in itself can go in a crazy way if we think that we have to look that certain way.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, yeah, it's still this, even though the mind definitely has quietened in that area for me, I definitely think there's still more to see. I still think there is identification even still with what the body looks like. And yeah, definitely still jangling slightly. Now I go to the gym and it's more about feeling strong rather than I mean, I guess that's still somewhere to get to ish, obviously, but I don't know, maybe it's obviously slightly healthier, but maybe it's just a replacement of one or the other. I don't know, but I definitely think there's less control on it. I find now, because I think previously, and I definitely spoke about this on season one for sure, around there's a softening now of, it's not so rigid in terms of I need to make sure I go to the gym 4 days a week. And if I don't, then gosh, what's that going to do? Or that's going to have an impact or change my body or change the way my body looks. Now it's much more of a softening into, well, I'm not feeling 100%, or I'm not going to force myself to go if I'm not feeling well enough to go, or even if I just don't want to go. And I think now my routine in flow with what the body feels like it wants on that day to an extent. So now I'm not doing just 4 strength sessions. I do Pilates as well as strength. So there's a bit of a mixture, and definitely a softening, like I said.
Yeah, that softening. I was just going to sort of ask you, so around that softening, what have you seen kind of differently, and what have you seen around that softening that you kind of that brought you to that softening almost?
I think it was the suffering around the thinking and the overthinking of that needing to go and then feeling bad and guilty for then not going. And it just felt like, what is going on here? I think at that point when there was the suffering around it, it gave me the space to think, actually, I'm not going because I enjoy it anymore. I'm going because I'm forcing myself to go because I feel like I have to go, rather than I'm just going because I want to. It was more of a forcing. So I guess I just took a step back and thought, what's really going on here? It's not coming from a place of I'm going to the gym because I want to go. It's coming from a place of I'm going to the gym because I need to maintain this version of this body that I've built.
Mm, mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and what I'm hearing is that less identified with I'm hearing that you kind of can hear, or we talk about, when we get to that fork in the road, we know when we're kind of, it's a mission of, I need to secure this identity,
mm,
this story, the mission that the body the mind thinks it has to have a perfect type of look or body that,
yeah,
and if I don't, then the mission's gonna fail almost. So it has to sort of,
yeah,
it's that noticing that, okay, it's okay. Maybe that did come in,
mm,
but it's having that space to realize that we're not in control. It's the mission that feels like it's in control at that moment. It's that sort of, that I hear that stepping back is, okay, I know what's kind of going on now. I know who seems to be
yeah,
driving the bus, and there is nobody, and I think that is the crucial part, isn't it, of this conversation. It's not that there's anything wrong, there's a right way or a wrong way. It is that noticing that, that, we're talking maybe a bit sort of deeper conversation here, that this all has been going on, created by us for us to see. We've kind of lost the plot a little bit of what is going on. We're out of alignment. We're seeing that we're separate. We're
yeah.
identified with a certain. Does that
It's the
kind of?
there's the program running, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. We're back in an old. We're back in that old programming that seemed to make sense back then, when
yeah,
this Ellie body needed to look a certain way to be okay. And yes, I mean, it is a survival, isn't it? Really, if my
yeah.
body
I
doesn't like
guess.
this, then oh my god, what will people
Yeah,
think of?
yeah, exactly. I think just going back to the question I asked you around what your experience was at that time, I think you maybe misunderstood what I was pointing to. Obviously, you spoke about how you sort of could see the influence of the conditioning and the inherited story of the running, but I was asking more around how you were feeling at that time when I was trying to control everything. I took over
Right. Okay.
the
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
cooking kitchen completely,
Yeah.
and yeah, what that felt like for you, and the feeling of not being able to do anything or say anything, or yeah,
Yeah, I think, looking back then, it almost felt the energy around that, very controlling energy, that sort of, oh my gosh, if you weren't in control of the food, the cooking and what we were eating, because we were obviously living together at that time. But I mean, it wasn't that the food was bad. But it was quite controlled. It was quite rigid. What the contents of different things were there was a vigilance around what we were eating.
yeah,
And yeah, I suppose, yeah, I was aware of that energy, but it's almost like, well, I think at that time, even though I, as a mother, had concerns, it's almost like, well, as your weight kind of started sort of diminishing, you were just getting smaller and smaller. Yeah, it was like, there's just something, there's something off here, but there's something that I am not almost like able to be completely honest and open. And it was almost like a bit, I felt a bit, it was a bit sneaky. It was more of a, I don't know, the control from me came in. The conversation wasn't clean. It wasn't a way of talking about it and honest, because what would that say about me as, you know, one, what was it say about me? I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to
Yeah.
kind of almost like push you over the edge. I mean, yeah, it is. It's a really. It's almost like a fine line here. It was really hard, and I can see now how a conversation could be much more honest, even though, yeah, at the time it's not. It was not a lack of any kind of. It was any irresponsibility of my parenting or
Yeah.
anything, but it was like, well, could I have kind of more cleanly intervened and had, yeah, more questions around what, what was going on. But, you know, when you're in your own kind of, you're in your own world, you're identified with yourself, your own story, and you don't
Yeah.
realize it just, yeah, you can't see it.
Yeah.
Because, to me, then it felt like there was this separate Ellie over there. There's this separate mother over here, and we're just, completely separate. And then, there were times that would come up. The energy was like, I have to say something here, but it was just, there was never that sort of right time, or it was there was a lot of thinking, a lot of noise coming in. Oh gosh, no, I don't think I should say anything. It doesn't feel,
Yeah.
it feels unsafe. We'll just get into an argument, or yeah.
Yeah.
And there was too much weight on my personal self, that I
Yeah.
thought was, yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think, yeah, that's the thing. It's almost like, and just going back to the conversation that we had with Maria, it's almost like the cycle kind of just loops and loops until, yeah, until it is questioned. Like the example I shared with the obsession with going to the gym consistently, and the suffering. That's what we always talk about. That's why we say the suffering is ultimately the gift, because the suffering is an unnatural state. The suffering only happens when we're really identified and caught up with, yeah, the separate self. It's not who we really are. And then it's either, like we say, the fork in the road. Either you go off on the fork and you continue looping and identifying and just doing the same thing you've always done, or like Maria said, I think she got to a point where she just was like, there must be more to life than this. Like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this, the same story playing out. I'm sick of this obsession and control over food and the body, and weighing herself, and that being the the thing that was the gold star if, she'd lost weight. And like we said when we were having the conversation with her, it couldn't have been any other way ultimately. But had she come to this conversation slightly earlier, or there was some sort of influence of this conversation, she would have seen it earlier.
Mm,
But
yeah.
yeah, and that's ultimately why we were sharing these podcasts and having these conversations, because the earlier this is seen in one area, it doesn't matter. Obviously the context of this conversation is around the body image, and obviously off the back of it, of what we were chatting about with Maria, but it can be anything. It's not, it's all these stories that we have in various different areas of our lives, but until they're ready to be seen, and until there is that space, it kind of will just continue and
Mm,
continue.
mm. And it does feel like it's an addiction to stabilize a fragile sense of a separate self that is only ever looking for itself, for for home, you know, to to reconnect, to settle into that well within that. And it will do anything. And the mind is just so powerful, so sneaky. Because once we just get one thing sorted out, you can really, well, I've controlled that. I've got that. So I've ticked that one off. I've got that one. It will pop up again. There'll be another kind of thing. you know, to come in and try and pull us away from what we who we really are. And just that's just the nature of this. We talk about this dance between, the that life is continuously, the intelligence behind life is continuously showing us and nudging us and saying, you know, maybe you should look this way and just sort of see what is the suffering. But because the suffering, because we don't like to suffer, as a human conditioning is, we don't like to suffer. So we'll look for any way to not suffer, to take it, to ease it, to take it, to take it away, to look away from it. That is life just saying, well, what if the suffering isn't the problem? What is thinking is suffering. It's not about the actual suffering, because we can deal with kind of anything really. And because we never question the suffering, or never question the belief system, or there's just going to be something that life has brought us to, almost like a fork in the road, a junction. It's saying, what if you could just, ask, what is going on here? What am I really, hearing in this? What could be, what could be different? What do I want? What is it really, really that I want? Is it really a perceived better body, whatever that even is? Or is it, I just want to feel love. I just want to feel like I belong. And what we're kind of saying here is that is never really gone anywhere. We are always love, because truly who we really are is love, is belonging, and that doesn't need to be changed. But because it feels so elusive, because we can't even see it, we try to do it in so many. We try to find it everywhere, but never look at the closest thing that's right on the end
Yeah.
of our nose.
Yeah. But yeah, the thing is, we'll continue to look outside for it until we realize that it is within us. And until we're able to see that for ourselves, that is who we fundamentally are, and really feel that and embody that, then you will just continuously look outside for these for these different things. And even still, we're not saying, and I think we, yeah, like a broken record when we say this, but that's why we say this conversation is for the rest of our lives. Because still, like I said, there's still jangling for me in this area, and I still have times when I'm identified with the body and there's thinking going on around it, and things. So yeah, it's just calling me to question, okay, what is this really, what is this really saying? Where's this really coming from? What, yeah, like you say, what's the want with this?
Mm.
And just, yeah, get a bit deeper and look a bit deeper at what what's actually going on and what's playing out.
And it,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's so, once we kind of, once we can't start seeing this in our everyday life, once we feel, or are able to notice the, we call them crunches, or get that tension in the body when we're either not getting what we want, or feel that, not, yeah, we're not getting that validation, or we're feeling stuck, or we don't want something, we're pushing something away, or we want to pull something towards, it's that crunch. It's that is the crucial bit, is it's noticing that is huge, really. And that can be done anywhere, all the time. We don't, it's not like a project, a project, this isn't work almost, it's just everyday life. When we start seeing it, it's there available to us, and it's like, okay, I've never seen that before. And then it's just we'll start seeing it again slightly differently. We know that it's nothing to be afraid of, or to be, to put, to resist or push it. Everything is available to be questioned and noticed in a different way. And then it's like, okay, we start seeing stuff everywhere, don't we? And it's,
Yeah.
we can't not see it. But yeah, when we're on a kind of mission to protect or to protect a version of ourselves, or protect something that we think is needing protection, that we start, we are just seeing this performance that we've kind of, that's been running the show for forever. And yeah, it's such a beautiful way to, to notice what's really going on.
Yeah. And like Maria said, I think her whole perspective and the way she sees life now is so different to then, and it's not just had an impact obviously on her eating and her body image or whatever. It's so many different areas of her life that yeah, that this
Yeah, her relationship, she talked about her relationship that's, sort of improved, and it does, because it is about everything. It touches everything. It's that ripple. We talk about the ripple that it has, that it can't, because we're showing up differently. We're showing up, our energy is unblocked, it's released. It's like, I can just be who I really am. I don't need to prop. I don't need to, to prop, to maintain, to manage, to, to make sure that everything is, because it's just so exhausting.
yeah, exactly. And imagine the freedom without all of that thinking going on and that analyzing and that all, yeah, I need to look a certain way, or if I don't, then gosh, got to go and do all these things. Or what does it say about me? It's
Yeah.
like that narrative is just not saying, like I've said a couple of times on this episode, we're not saying that it's going to just completely go away, because it's never. But you can see it for what it is, and that's the whole point. When you understand where it's coming from, you can see, the system that's creating it, then it just doesn't carry the same weight anymore, because it's fundamentally not
Mm.
true. But it doesn't mean that from time to time you're not going to believe it.
Yeah, and also it doesn't mean, which I think is really important to just say, it doesn't mean that we're gonna all of a sudden we're gonna go, right, we're gonna get really huge, and we're gonna just, or whatever, this
Yeah.
body's just go, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's not about that. We can have the a body that we want, the beauty, because we admire that, sort of, it's an admiration, that beauty, but, or to wear to wear makeup, to adorn the body, or to but in a way that just feels really congruent with who we really are, and just the joy and the beauty. But it doesn't diminish beauty. I think it makes it even
Yeah.
more apparent, because that energy is so in line, attuned
Yeah.
to.
And it's just
Yeah,
it's an authentic expression rather than coming from
a
the
need.
thinking, the conditioning and need to look a certain way to then survive or be enough or be loved or whatever.
Yeah,
It just is, and that is
just
beautiful.
is. Yeah. So, yes, what a nice conversation that was with her. And as I said at the beginning, it was lovely to meet her. And I'm sure, my goodness, that conversation will resonate with a lot of people. And yeah, she's such a beautiful soul. She's so gentle, and has such a lot to share with the world. Just being who she is. Lovely.
Absolutely. Right. Well, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.